ruler bringing to his own daughter, to reveal to her the glory of the archangel and the gifts she would gain by helping her father and her people.
The Crimson Tress Princess came to her father, letting him envelop her in that arm. Atana gave Kentril a loving, knowing smile, one that filled with the certainty of the righteousness of her sire's cause.
She was scared, my good captain. Scared because she did not understand the blessing you wished to give her.
The weathered but noble face beamed down on his loving offspring.
I had to be forceful. I had to insist, despite her unwillingness. It took much perseverance, even on the part of the Archangel, but at last she opened herself up to him.
Atana wore an enraptured expression.
I was so childish, my love. I actually feared what Father wanted. When the Archangel entered me, I actually screamed. Can you believe it? It all seems so silly now.
But the captive mercenary who had seen what such a blessing had created of Atana and her father, it hardly seemed silly at all. Whatever their angelic benefactor had sought to accomplish had resulted in an abomination of everything holy. I believe I'm nearly ready, my lord, Sin suddenly announced. There are but a few minor patterns to cast.
I'm gratified, Master Sorcerer. Without your effort, this could not come to be.
Kentrell chose to use the distraction as a chance again to test the mobility of his body. Unfortunately, even despite the Bajara's numerous tasks and Lord Khan's horrific reminiscences, the sorcery keeping the captain prisoner had not faltered in the least. Atana came to his side again, rubbing what would have been a soothing hand on his forehead, if not for the fact that she used the same appendage that had earlier been mangled to pulp. The rich emerald eyes gleamed but did not blink.
You'll feel so silly yourself when this is all over, darling Kentril. You'll wonder, just as I did, why I made such a fuss.
He could not meet her gaze, not while the memory of how she had looked when she had entered the chamber still burned harshly in his mind. Instead, the captain glanced past her at Juris Khan, who seemed to have finished with his tale now, and intended to do the same to Kentril. What did happen to Gregis Mossy? The pleasant smile on the robed monarch's kindly face became not at all pleasant.
I told you of the keys they're making and our earlier attempt to lock the shadow in place, just as you eventually did for us. I also told you how Gregus came again to do the unthinkable, to betray us again. And all this, I did not lie, good captain. What I omitted, though, was that he had help in the form of misguided Tobio.
Gregis Mossy had secretly returned to Ureh and had learned of the crystals, just as Lord Khan had previously said. But in the process, he'd also come across the still prisoned priest. Seizing on Tobias' madness and pretending to believe it, the sorcerer had informed his new ally that they had to remove or destroy the two keys so that the Holy Kingdom could not remain on the mortal plane. It was decided that their chances would be double if each went in search of a separate stone. Then, if only one of them succeeded, Ureh would again be cast into limbo. But although he had entered the city unnoticed, Gregis Mati did not escape his former master's attention. When he sought out the key to Shadow, the sorcerer had almost succeeded in stealing away the crystal, but Lord Khan had managed to catch him in the midst of the act. They did battle, but the traitorous spellcaster did not know of the powerful gifts the Archangel had given. Matsi fell swiftly, and in order to make certain that there would be no repeat of such betrayal, Khan transformed him into the sentinel Cantrell and the others had discovered. Before that happened, however, the Lord of Ureh had wrung from his former friend the fact that Tabio had already started for the other crystal.
You see, my dear Captain, the key to light had indeed been set in place by brave martyrs. However, when I learned from Gregis that Tobio had gone to destroy my hopes for our eventual release, I admit I grew furious. Summoning the powers granted to me by the Archangel, I transported myself to the shadowed side of the thief, there to find the misguided priest seeking to wrest the key of light from its anointed place.
Khan paused, eyes momentarily closed in what appeared to be a moment of renewed mourning. When he opened them again, he told his prisoner,
I still cry for poor Tobio, corrupted by Gregis. His death I could not help. I gave him one good opportunity to see the errors of his way, to break free of the madness and come back to me to Ureh.
Suddenly, Kentrell recalled the grisly discovery he had found, all but buried in the cold, hard soil atop sinister Nymyr. But he didn't, did he?
Alas, no. Instead, foolish Tobio tore the key free and stepped back into the first rays of the day. I admit, I reacted without thought, only aware that he had stolen my children's freedom.
The weathered bone Captain Dumont had found had belonged to the determined priest, not one of the so-called volunteers. Uncorrupted Tobio had been able to step into the sunlight, but it had not saved him from Juris Khan's wrath. Fortunately, the crystal had fallen to where even the Lord of Ureh could not reach it. The madness that had consumed the Shadow Kingdom had been kept in check. That is, until Kentrell and his men had come along.
Even if good Tobio had failed, I admit I would have still required the aid of a worthy sorcerer, such as our friend Kof Sin here.
Concluded Atana's father.
But that would have been so much easier with the kingdom set in place. Not resurrecting only once a day, but two every few years. But come, time is fast approaching, and I've likely bored you with so much talk of the past. Now we must prepare for the future, when my people, my children, enlightened by the angels and no longer fearful of the sun, can go out into the world of men and spread the Archangel's word to others.
But Kentrell had seen those children, the ghoulish creatures that now filled the city. The ghostly forms he and the others had first witnessed had been allusions to the mask and even greater horror. Khan had played on the sympathies of the mercenary officer, and because of it, Captain Dumont had sent most of his men to terrible, monstrous deaths. The vision he had seen twice had been no delusion caused by the thief's drug, no bite from a savage insect. It had been the truth, the reality of Ureh. The Holy Kingdom, the light among lights, had been transformed into some diabolic, demonic. All this time, Juriscon had been manipulating him, preparing the way so his horrific subjects could spread beyond the confines of the shadow, spread throughout the mortal lands. Yet, all the time his captor spoke of the wondrous archangel, the heavenly figure who had come to guide him and his flock to the ultimate sanctuary. Again, Kentrell wondered how everything had turned out so horribly when the archangel's word became twisted or usurped, or had there ever been an archangel in the first place? Lord Khan had already taken his place, Atana and Quothsin following suit. The towering monarch raised the dagger and opened his mouth. "My lord!" blurted Kentrell. "One last question to ease my mind, to enable me to accept the glory you offer. May I see this wondrous archangel? May I see what he looked like?" The Vizier, obviously eager to continue, only snorted at this abrupt question. But Juriscon had accepted it with pleasure, clearly believing that the fighter sought to understand.
Why, bless you, Kentrell Dumont. If it makes all the difference, I can try to show you. You must know, of course, that I draw from the memory, so what you see, however magnificent, is but a dim, human representation of a being perfect in all manner. In truth, even I never saw him fully, for what mortal could stand the blinding glory of one of heaven's guardians?
Giving the blade to his daughter, he held his hands up high and muttered a spell. Kentrell tensed more, although he could not be certain exactly why. Lord Khan would only be summoning a representation of the Archangel, not the true being. The mercenary could hardly expect any aid from an illusion.
Behold!
Juriscon called, indicating an area well above the platform.
Behold, a warrior of truth, a guardian of the bastion of light, a sentinel of goodness, watching over all.